This is Pokémon Opalo. From the creator of Pokémon Enil and Pokémon Z, this game takes place in a region modeled after the southwestern United States. And people have been asking me for a while if I was going to play this game, so here it is. And it wouldn't be one of my videos if we didn't try to beat it on our first try as a hardcore Nuzlocke, which of course means that if a Pokémon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace. No active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video, the sound of my voice, and this isn't your first time here, you should definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. Any support you can show for the channel would be really great. And if you think that you're already subscribed, you should probably double check. Over 80% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so you should probably do that. But anywho, let's head into the Sephiria region with Pokemon Opalo. Pokemon Opalo opens up with a Pokemon League match, much like the first episode of the anime, but with this time an Arcanine and a Lucario facing off against one another. But then suddenly, tragedy strikes, as a bomb goes off, ending the lives of more than 2,000 people and Pokemon. Now we cut to 7 years later, where we're introduced to Professor Ebano, who seems like he's explaining how the Pokemon League works in some kind of PSA informational video with a kid named Little Timmy.
But Professor Ebno, I want to become a Pokemon trainer, but my father says I need to study to do something important.
Well, I think your father's an idiot. You should grab a Pokeball and set out on a journey today. Oh my gosh, it is 100% a PSA video. And after we head downstairs and talk to our dad who wants us to go get a job, we read a letter that's apparently from our childhood best friend who comes from a very rich family. So we need to meet up with them because maybe they'll give me some money, or at least a job. And after entering the Pokemon shelter, apparently our childhood best friend Opalo has left 3 starter Pokemon for us to choose from. And in Pokemon Opalo, we are treated to these 3 fantastic Fakemon starter Pokemon. First up, we have Flasinge the Fire Pokemon, Swolefin the Water-type Pokemon, and Snappary the Grass-type Pokemon. And not knowing what each of these Pokemon evolve into because I'm going into this playthrough blind, I'm actually going to go with the Water-type starter, Swolefin. And after gaining our starter Pokemon, our new best friend forever, our Swolefin, runs away. But once we catch up to it, we run into this bearded bald fellow, who I recognize, of course, from television. And with a little bit of coaxing from this man's beard, we officially receive our Swolefin, who we're gonna nickname Flipper. And this is when we are officially introduced to Professor Ebano, who we might recognize from TV. And of course we do. We were literally just watching it. He then lets us know that if we want a career in Pokemon training, we should meet up with his daughter just past the city where we have to go to anyways. And my dad just did tell me I need to get a job. And just past Route 1, we run into our childhood friend, and just look at that golden majestic Pokeball around Apollo's neck. And just as we're about to catch up, we meet this mysterious pink-haired lady, who just ordered us 3 strawberry milkshakes. And in an utter buzzkill, Apollo introduces her as his fiancée, Vera. And apparently she's a reporter for the Channel 3 News. After regaling us with tales of his awesomeness and how great his life's been, he asks what we've been up to. And I let him know that life's going pretty well for me too. I still live in that 2-room house with my dad, and on Thursdays and Fridays, I get the bed. Apollo then lets us know that our father's dream is about to come true. He's offering us a job. Apparently the Pokemon League has been dissolved since the bombing 7 years ago, and Apollo wants to bring it back. And we could be the face of this brand new Pokemon League. All we gotta do is go around, get some badges, and get strong. And I am totally in. And after talking to Apollo and Vera, we head back home to tell our dad the good news. He's so happy he'll be able to get the bed all 7 nights a week. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab ourselves a Poochyena, who we're going to nickname Maisie. And over on Route 2, we're going to grab ourselves a regional Meowth, who we're going to nickname Mittens. And apparently this normal fire Meowth is one of 3 different regional variants in this game. And at Fulgur Cave, we're going to grab ourselves a Roly-Poly. Just kidding. And while passing through Fulgur Cave, we run into these 2 ruffians trying to rough up this construction worker to steal their dynamite. But now, enter us. And just before they beat up this dude for their explosives, they turn around, noticing us. And just after the construction worker says he won't give over the dynamite, he runs over to us, leaving it in perfect view of these probably bad guys. The 2 masked individuals then introduce themselves as members of the dreaded Team Gatling, Scourge of the Law. And after beating up this bully, the second guy realizes that the construction worker forgot his explosives, so they take it anyways and run off. This guy then lets us know that Team Gatling was apparently the ones behind the Pokemon League explosion 7 years ago. And now it appears as though they're back. And over on Route 3, we're gonna grab ourselves a Swaddle, who we're gonna nickname Nibbler. And after we stop briefly to let this Clefairy cross the road, this blue-haired lady bashes right into us, and that's incredibly rude. And apparently she's been chasing this Clefairy down for 2 days, but a big silly fella like us wouldn't know anything about that. And she decides to take her revenge by challenging us to a Pokemon battle. This mystery lady starts off by sending in a Natsu and we send in Flipper. It goes for a Leer on the first turn and we're going to fire off a water gun doing about 50%. It then outspeeds us again going for a peck as we get it down way into the red, and another peck is going to bring us down to about half while we take it down. Next up is going to come a raised Snampry, and I'm going to swap Flipper out and instead we're going to be sending in Nibbler as it goes for an Absorb which does nothing basically. Now we can go for a Bug Bite doing just about 50% as it then goes for a Pound, pounding it out doing just a bit of damage, but with one more Bug Bite we can take this Sluggo down and we defeat this mystery lady. This mystery woman then introduces herself as Gala. And she's on a quest for answers, but to what questions? None of our business. And then she winks at us and leaves. Before taking on our first gym leader, we head over to Professor Abano's lab where we're introduced. Before heading over to our first gym challenge, we head over to Professor Abano's lab and are introduced to his daughter, Talia. Before heading to our first gym battle, we meet up with Professor Abano. Once again, Before taking on our first gym challenge, we meet up with Professor Opalo, and after discussing the return of Team Gatling over some coffee, he invites us upstairs to his lab, where he gives us a Pokedex. After receiving our Pokedex, we run outside where we are introduced to Mundanez, the local gym leader, who apparently is only the gym leader because he won the lottery. Over in Jolly Q City, we're going to grab ourselves one of the monkeys, and we're going to go with Pansage, who we're going to nickname Leafy. And now it's time for us to take on Menendez in our first ever gym battle. He starts off by sending an electric Meowth in, and we're going to send in Flipper. So we're going to swap Flipper out, and instead we're going to send in Maisie as it goes for a Growl, lowering our attack on the first turn. After that, it's going to go for a Bite, doing a bit of damage to us, and I'm going to go for a Howl to get my attack back up to neutral. It's then going to go for a Fury Swipes, doing a massive amount of damage on us because of a crit on the second hit, and we're going to go for another Howl to get up to +1, but I need to swap out. So we do, and we send in Mittens as he goes for another Fury Swipes. We're then going to go for a Stab Flame Charge doing about 50% as a Thunder Shock unfortunately gets the paralysis off on us. And after that, he's going to go for another Fury Swipes, which fortunately he misses, and we can go for another Flame Charge, getting it down way into the red. After that, he's going to use his first Super Potion, and we can go for a third Flame Charge, increasing our speed even more. And then now getting a Bite off, we're now down to just 8 HP as we knock this thing down effectively to nothing. Which means we're going to swap Mittens out, and instead we're going to be sending in Leafy as it goes for yet another Fury Swipes. And fortunately for me, this thing keeps only hitting twice as a Bite brings us to 50%, and a Vine Whip takes out the Meowth. Slack Off's going to come in next, and I'm going to go for a Vine Whip doing about a quarter as a Feint Attack gets us down to just 13 HP. But knowing this thing is true, we're going to swap out, sending in Flipper as we have a free turn. And now we can go for a super effective Rock Smash, bringing this thing down way into the red as Scratch does about 30% to us. One more Rock Smash takes it down. And now his final Pokemon, a Lickitung, comes in. And I'm going to stay in going for another Rock Smash, and we don't even do a quarter as a Lick does fortunately barely anything to us. And now we're going to get this thing down just below half, and we fortunately get the defense drop as a Stomp drops us down to just 9 HP. I am super scared. We're going to swap Flipper out, sending in Nimbler as it goes for another Stomp, getting a crit, getting us down just below half. And we can outspeed with a Bug Bite, taking it down super low as fortunately a Lick doesn't paralyze us, so we can grab the KO. And with that mighty Bug Bite, we've earned our first badge. And after defeating the first gym leader, he decides to quit his job as a gym leader and go around the region as a normal Pokemon trainer as well, and decides to head over to Breezetown to pick up the third and final starter. And this is a really interesting analog to what Brock does in the anime, so I am all for it. Over on Route 4, we're going to grab ourselves a Houndour, who we're going to nickname Bandit. While fighting our way across Route 4, Flipper is going to ascend into its second form of Norsepear. And also on Route 4, we're going to run into Gala again. Apparently at this ranch they breed the most powerful Mudbray in the entire world, and she wants to see for herself. And just as this horse boy and horse girl are about to have a really awesome horse conversation and explosion, and the entry of Team Gatling, where we're going to be introduced to one of Team Gatling's bosses, Colt. Colt explains that Team Gatling steals from the rich and gives to themselves. Colt notifies the breeder that all these horses are now the property of Team Gatling, because something's coming, and they're gonna need these horses. And just so that way we know that they're super serious about taking these horses, they've taken this rich lady hostage. And now it looks like it's gonna be up to me and Gala to go steal those horses back. And over on the Dusty Steep, we're gonna grab ourselves a Sandile, who we're gonna nickname Croc. After Gala and I catch up with Colt and all the stolen horsies, it's gonna be time for us to Pokemon battle him for them, because Pokemon. Colt starts off by sending in a Sandlet and we send in Flipper. It's gonna go for a fake out right away, doing barely anything to us, but it's gonna do what it do as it outspeeds us, going for an Ember on the following turn. But with a crit Razor Shell, we can grab ourselves the Oko. Next down is gonna come a Luxio. And we're gonna swap out, sending in Leafy as it goes for a Spark, doing a lot more than I expected. After that, it'll outspeed, going for a Tackle, doing a decent amount of damage as we go for a Vine Whip, doing barely anything. And now knocked down to just 11 HP, we got this thing down just below half. And we're gonna swap out, sending in Nibbler as the Luxio goes for a Tackle. And when going for a Spark, we're now down to about 50% as a Stab Bug Bite finishes off the Luxio. He then is gonna send in his final Pokemon, this regional Delibird, who is gonna go for a quad effective Peck, destroying Nibbler. So we're gonna go ahead and send in Mittens as it goes for a Pursuit, scoring a massive hit on us as we go for a Flame Charge, doing barely anything. Hoping it doesn't go for another Pursuit, fortunately it doesn't as we send in Maisie as it goes for a Peck, scoring a huge hit on us again. And we are in a really crappy spot here as Maisie gets taken out by the Delibird as well. So we're gonna go ahead and send in Flipper as the Delibird outspeeds us, going for a Taunt, but that's fine because we're just gonna go for a Razor Shell, scoring a pretty good hit and getting the defense drop. After that, it's gonna go for a Leer, but don't worry, one more Razor Shell successfully takes down the Delibird, and we've lost 2 Pokemon against Commander Colt. But because of the rules of Pokemon battles, we do get the horsies back. Before facing off against our second gym challenge, apparently there's some sort of fair going on in the city. And after watching this cool rodeo act, we're forced to eat this strange concoction that's gonna help us travel to the astral plane, where we meet the silhouette of a dog who requires our assistance. This mysterious shadow Pokemon also lets us know that the Pokemon world is dying. And how the heck did Gala get here? Did she also eat the weird thing? Over in the Saphira Canyon, we find a Charizard that I can push? Oh. And while we're in the canyon, we're gonna grab ourselves a Helioptile, who we're gonna nickname Newman. And now it's time for us to take on Acacia and her ground Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Mudbray, and we send in Leafy. On the first turn, we're gonna outspeed and go for a Seed Bomb, scoring a crit Oko on this thing right away. Next up is gonna come her Piloswine, and we're gonna go for another Seed Bomb once again, doing about 2/3 as it goes for a Rock Smash, scoring a decent hit on us. After that, she's going to heal up with a Super Potion, and we can go for another Seed Bomb, getting it down low once again. After that, she's going to swap out, sending in Tangela instead, as we go for a Seed Bomb, doing about 1/3. And it goes for a Needle Arm, doing quite a bit of damage to us, and we can go for a Seed Bomb, as it then heals back up with the Citrus Berry. Assuming I can tank one more, I stay in, getting knocked down to 2 HP, as I get this thing back down to about 1/3. And I'm going to swap Leafy out and instead send in Bandit, calling it as it goes for another Needle Arm, but it still does a crazy amount of damage to us. But we can outspeed on the following turn and finish it off with an Ember. When Piloswine comes back in as her final Pokemon, I can outspeed it again, go for another Ember, take it down, and we earn our second badge. After leaving the second gym, we hear a familiar voice calling to us from above, and we turn around and see Gala standing on top of the gym. She then declares Sneak Attack, before pouncing off, landing on us, knocking us over. And after sharing a small moment of awkwardness, she stands up, saying that she was worried about us. because whatever that astral projection stuff that we took over at the fair was pretty strong for our first time. But it's now time for both of us to head over to Austral City for our third badge. And while on our way over to Austral City, Croc is going to evolve into a Crocorock. And Mittens is going to evolve as well, becoming this brand new fantastical regional Persian. And I love that it's a Lynx. And next up is going to be Bandit, who is also going to evolve into its final glorious form of Houndoom. Now, Brew 5, we're going to grab ourselves a Cubone, who we're going to nickname Bonk. And also over on Route 5, we run into Menendez, who is adjusting about as well as you would expect to being a Pokemon trainer out in the real world. But he's hoping that another Pokemon battle with us can inspire him to continue along this fantastical Pokemon journey. He starts off by sending in that Meowth, and we sending our Leafy. It's going to go for a Thunderfang on the first turn, scoring a decent hit off on us, and we can go for a Seed Bomb OHKOing this kitty cat, which is going to lead into his new starter Pokemon Flasinge. And we're going to swap out, sending in Mittens as the Flasinge goes for an Incinerate, doing barely anything to us. And we can then fire back with a Bite, scoring a massive hit, getting this thing down pretty low as it goes for a Fairy Wind, but it does recover a little bit of HP with the Citrus Berry. And after that, we can go for an Empower Return, scoring a crit OHKO, which is going to lead into his old ace, Lickitung. And going for another return, we score a massive hit on this thing as a Stomp does the same. And after that, he's going to heal up with a Super Potion like the big old cheater he is as we go for another return, scoring a massive hit, KOing the Lickitung and defeating Menendez. And when he tries to throw himself off of this bridge in sheer embarrassment to losing another battle against us, he is suddenly saved by a Talonflame. And with this new strength and resolve, he declares that he will not be afraid anymore. And what exactly is this guy's deal? After meeting up with Opalo outside of the gym, he lets us know the team Gatling has been active within the city, and he needs our help in hunting them down and taking care of them. And if it means being allowed to go into a building to get my third badge, you better believe I'm on board.
We're working on a secret Pokeball project that will allow us to catch both humans and Pokemon. I think they want to use it as a weapon of war or something. I'm telling you all this because I drank a truth potion half an hour ago with my coffee. At night, I like to dress up as Lucario and stroke my tail.
And while searching for Team Gatling, we're gonna fish ourselves up a Marill, who we're gonna nickname Pika-Blue, after tracking down the two Team Gatling grunts that we always track down. Apparently they're about to kick off an operation that nobody's gonna see coming. Except now, I found out about their operation. Once we beat up these two dorks, they let us know that the operation at the mall is about to begin. And I guess we gotta head over to the department store as quickly as possible to stop them. But apparently, the mall was a ruse. They were after the train station. Once we track Team Gatling down to the train station, we're introduced to another one of their bosses. This pretty purple-haired lady, whose name is Carabina. And apparently they're here to hijack a train because of course they are. This is a Western after all. And this train is carrying enough Pokemon essence to power an entire city. And after making our way through this stolen train, we find Carabina on the top, where we can have a super epic boss fight atop aboard a runaway train. She starts off by sending in Mawile, and I'm going to send in Mittens. I'm going to go for a Fire Fang right away, scoring a massive hit, getting this thing down way into the red as it sets up an Iron Defense. Which is unfortunate because now with a Hyper Potion, I'm at -1 and this thing's at +2, and we don't even do half. But once we can go for 2 more Fire Fangs, we get it back down to where we had it before as it goes for a Thunder Punch, doing about a quarter to us. And 1 more Fire Fang takes it down. Next down is going to come her Sand Slash. And I'm going to swap out Mittens, and I'm going to send in Croc to get the Intimidate off on this thing, as it decides to go for a Bulldoze, doing about 50% to us. I'm then going to swap Croc out because I don't want him to go down, and we're going to send in Flipper as he goes for a Rock Smash, doing a good amount of damage. But fortunately for me, the Intimidate drops it so I'm in a comfortable spot, so after we get bulldozed, I can go for a Razor Shell, score a crit, grab the KO. Her final Pokemon, a Drapion, comes in. And it's going to go for a Poison Fang, doing a bit of damage to us as I go for a Razor Shell, and I don't even do half on a crit. After that, it goes for another Poison Fang, and unfortunately, I get poisoned. And what's more, I missed my Razor Shell on the following turn, and at only 8 HP, we need to swap. So I'm going to swap, and we're going to be setting in Croc to get the Intimidate off on this big Scorpion as well, as it goes for a Bug Bite. KOing my crocodile. So I guess I'll send in Mittens, who can go for a stab, boosted return, grab the KO on Drapion, and we defeat Carabina. And even though by the rules of Pokemon battling that means everything on the train is mine, she commands her Sandslash to use Rock Smash on the train, making her getaway. And in hot pursuit, her Drapion then attacks the engine of the train, destroying it. Because if she can't have the Pokesense, then nobody can. And she plans on having this train crash, taking everybody out, including her. Now enter Opalo, ready to save the day with his Braviary, the symbol of America, who he commands to use Hurricane on the train to force the brakes, preventing us from derailing, and just in the nick of time, we're saved from certain doom. Now in police custody, Carabina says that they were stealing the Pokesense for the good of humanity. Something horrible is coming, and only their boss can stop it. But Apollo's not having any of it, and tells the police to take her away. Before facing off against the next gym leader, we are going to add Bonk to our party and have it evolve right away into a Marowak. And now it's time for us to take on Beal and her Fire Red Hot Fire guys. I didn't think of something clever to say. Anyways, Beal starts off by sending in the fieriest Pokemon of all, Clang, and we send in Bonk. And we're going to go for a Boomerang right away, scoring a massive hit and an Oko. Our next Pokemon in is going to be Torkoal, and once again, we are going to go for a Boomerang, but unfortunately, we miss as this thing goes for a Flame Wheel. That does minimal damage to us, so once we can break through and go for another Boomerang, we can take out the Torkoal. Her ace Pokemon, this absolutely awesome Clockwork Golurk, comes in, and we're going to go for a Rock Tomb. That way we can go ahead and break its Air Balloon, as it then goes for a Fire Punch, scoring a pretty big hit on us. But fortunately, we don't miss our Boomerang, and we can take it out, defeating Beal and earning our third badge. And I completely forgot about this, but the egg that Vera gave us hatches into an Eevee, who we're going to nickname Bean. Carabina reveals to the police that they planned on using the Pokesense to create a bomb powerful enough to bust their boss out of jail. She reveals that in his solitude, he has become a true prophet, and something horrible was coming, and only Derringer would be able to stop it. And while she doesn't know exactly what that catastrophe is, apparently Derringer communes with Pokemon on the astral plane a lot like we did when we were tripping balls at that fair. After learning this information, Apollo says he needs to report to the president right away. And now enter President Mustang, the most American thing ever, who congratulates Apollo on this massive arrest as well as being able to stop the train from being destroyed. Apollo's being heralded as a hero. President Mustang thanks Apollo for her service and for saving the train and all of that sweet Pokesense. And after calling us heroes once again and thanking us for our service to the entire region, he tells us just to not even worry about Team Gatling anymore. They're probably not a big deal. And if that's not mysterious, I don't know what is. Once we exit the police station, Opalo has the exact same thought as us, and we need to head back to Jolicu City to gather the information that we have so far on Team Gatling. Now enter the freeloader Mundanez, who's also looking to catch a ride over to the same place we are, and Opalo offers to fly us all there on the back of his Braviary. So we each grasp a talent and Opalo gets on its back, and we're flying off, baby. I also totally forgot, after getting our third badge, we can get a random stone every day, and we got ourselves a Leaf Stone, so Leafy can evolve into a Simisage. In the northern part of the tunnel, we're going to grab ourselves a Timber, who we're going to nickname Bob. Over on Route 6, we're going to grab ourselves a Krogunk, who we're going to nickname Glenn. While traveling along Route 6 and just barely avoiding a Barraskewda, enter Gala from out of the water, tackling us to the ground once again. And now with both of us soaking wet and her without a fish, she decides to challenge us to a Pokemon battle. Gala starts off by sending in a Lycanroc, and we're going to send in Leafy. It's going to set up some Stealth Rocks right away on the first turn, which is incredibly unfortunate, but we're going to go for a Seed Bomb, grabbing ourselves the Oko. Next up comes her Xatu, who is going to go for an Air Cutter on us, scoring a massive hit, bringing us down to just 9 HP before we go for a critical hit, super effective knockoff, taking out the bird. Next up is going to come her Evolve starter, Descargo, And I'm going to swap Leafy out and then send in Mittens, who's going to take some damage from the rocks as this thing goes for an energy ball. We're going to outspeed on the following turn, going for a Fire Fang, doing about 2/3 as it goes for a Shockwave, bringing us down to 11 HP, and it heals up with a Citrus Berry. I need to stay in and risk it as I go for another Fire Fang, and fortunately, it's enough, as the Descargo goes down. And with that, we've defeated Gala. She then brings up our tripping experience once again, asking us what we saw. But because we're a silent protagonist, we don't tell her. And then she just winks and leaves. After getting to Opalo Town, we head over to the Pokemon Center, where on the top floor we find Professor Ebano, who's incredibly excited to see us. Apparently our last gym fight was on the front page of the newspaper, and it looks like the Pokemon League might be coming back. He then introduces us to Joanna, one of the leading researchers on PokeSense, which according to his estimations may be the energy of the future. And this is like the 4th time that we've heard about PokeSense, but Joanna explains what it actually is. The life energy emitted by a happy Pokemon can be captured and used as actual energy. And while just a small amount of energy is able to power an entire building, it's incredibly unstable and still needs to be researched. And this is why Professor Abano feels as though Pokemon training and trainers in general are so important. The bonds that we share with our Pokemon will be able to power the entire world. And now enter a random Nurse Joy, who lets us know that our mother is waiting for us upstairs. And this is where we find out that our mother doesn't work here at the health center. She's a patient here, and she said that she could sense us coming, and that she even saw us participating in a Pokemon battle on television. This is also when our mother shows us the outline of that doggo we saw when we were totally tripping. And with this cryptic drawing from our mother, it's time for us to leave. And time for us to take on Romero and his water Pokemon. He starts off by sending in Swanna, and we send in Leafy. Doing a flying move we're going to swap out right away, sending in Newman as it sets up a Rain Dance. It then outspeeds us on the following turn, going for an Air Cutter, doing a decent amount of damage to us, but I'm going to go for a Parabolic Charge, grabbing ourselves the ×4 Oko, healing back up to full. Dreadnought comes in next, and I'm going to outspeed going for a Parabolic Charge again, doing just under 40% as this thing goes for a Rock Tomb, scoring a massive hit, getting me down to just 16 HP. Assuming another Rock Tomb, I'm going to swap Newman out, and instead we're going to send in Leafy, as this time it goes for a Crunch, doing just under half. And we can outspeed, going for a Seed Bomb, grabbing ourselves the Yoko. Abomasnow comes in, which is a hilarious regional form. And I'm going to go for a knockoff, because I know this thing is holding a Toxic Orb, and it fires back with an Ice Punch, getting me down to just 6. Not really knowing what I should do next, I'm going to swap out and then send in Bandit as this thing sets up a Rain Dance. We're then going to go for a neutral Fire Fang, doing barely anything as it goes for a Water Pulse, knocking me down to 15 HP. So we're going to pivot and I'm going to swap out, this time sending in Flipper as he calls my bluff, going for a Razor Leaf. I'm then going to go for a neutral Ice Shard, getting a crit, bringing him way down to the red as he goes for a Water Pulse, getting me down to just 23, and unfortunately now I'm confused. And knowing he's going to heal up, we're going to swap out, sending in Newman as Romero uses a Hyper Potion. And now going for a neutral Parabolic Charge, I do barely anything as it goes for a Razor Leaf, taking Newman down. And with the rain done, we're going to be sending in Mittens now. Or I can go for a stab neutral Fire Fang, getting it down pretty low as a Water Pulse comes in, doing about 50%. But luckily, it doesn't confuse me. So we can then go for a return and grab the KO on the Abomasnow. And he still has one Pokemon left with Araquanid. And we're going to go for a stab boosted return, getting this thing down wicked low as all it does is set up a Rain Dance. And after using another Hyper Potion to get back up to full, we can go for a return, once again bringing it down into the red. And one more can bring down this bug. And unfortunately, we lost our electric Pokemon, but we did beat Romero. And to swap out Newman, we are going to add Glenn in right away and evolve him into a Toxicroak. Over on Route 7, we're going to grab a regional Teddy Ursa, who we're going to nickname Pooh. While traveling down Route 7, we run into Mundanez once again. And now that he's earned 4 badges, including his own, he wants to challenge us to another Pokemon battle. He starts off by sending in a Meditite, and we're going to send in Leafy. I'm going to go for a neutral knockoff right away, scoring a pretty massive hit on him as he for some reason goes for a Thunder Punch. And after that, he's going to use a Hyper Potion, and we can go for a Seed Bomb, grabbing ourselves the Yoko. Next out comes Shaboon. And I'm going to swap Leafy out, and instead we're going to be sending in Bonk as he goes for a Dazzling Gleam. He then goes for an Incinerate, getting me down to about a quarter, and we are going to go for a Boomerang where we can pick up the Oko. Next now it's going to come is Lickitung, and we're going to switch out Bonk, and we're going to send in Glenn as this thing goes for a Body Slam, scoring a massive critical hit on us. And as long as this thing doesn't score another crit on us, I should be able to take another hit as a Brick Break brings him way down to the red, and he goes for another Body Slam as I get knocked down to 13. This is going to have him use another Hyper Potion, and then we can go for a Brick Break, once again, bringing him down super low. And with one more Bonk from our Glenn, we take out the Lickitung, which is going to lead into his final Pokemon, Persian. So I'm going to swap out Glenn, and I'm going to send Leafy back in since I know I can resist his electric moves. He's going to go for a Bite, getting me down pretty low, and we can go for a Seed Bomb, getting it down low as well. And assuming another Bite, I'm going to swap out and then send in Bandit instead, as it does go for a Bite, and it does a lot more than I thought it would. After that, it's going to follow up with a Thunder Fang, grabbing the KO on my doggo. So I guess we're sending in Mittens, where it still outspeeds us, scoring a massive hit with a Thunder Fang, but then we can go for a return, grabbing the KO, and we defeat Mundanez. And with newfound resolve, because our handsome best friend patted him on the back and told him he did a good job, Mundanez moves forward into the back half of the gym challenge, instead of doing his job. Smell you later. And with our doggo taken down, we're gonna add Pooh into the party and evolve it right away into an Ursaring. So I'm in Elysium City, and I tried to enter a random building, and this guy who looks a lot like Red just ran into me and challenged me to a Pokemon battle. And then he starts off with a Pidgeotto. So I'm going to swap Leafy out, and instead we're going to be sending in Flipper as he goes for a Feather Dance, which is incredibly unfortunate. But I'm still going to try to go for a Stab Ice Shard if we do about a third, and the Pidgeotto then goes for a Wing Attack, doing about a quarter. After that, another Ice Shard is going to get him down way into the red, as it then follows up going for a Steel Wing. And after that, one more Ice Shard from Flipper takes out the Pidgeotto. Next out comes a Munchlax. So I'm going to swap out Flipper, and instead we're going to be sending in Pooh as this thing goes for a Body Slam, scoring a massive amount of damage on us. We're then going to outspeed on the following turn and go for a Brick Break, taking out the Munchlax. Poliwrath comes in as his final Pokemon, and I'm going to swap Pooh out and instead send in Glenn as the Poliwrath goes for a Liquidation, but because of my dry skin it doesn't do anything. Then from here, Glenn can go for a Thunder Punch, doing just about 40% as the Poliwrath then goes for an Ice Punch. Then we can exchange a couple more punches back and forth with another Thunder Punch bringing him down pretty low, and another Ice Punch getting me down to about half. But with one more mighty Thunder Punch, we take down this dude's Poliwrath. And Totally Not Red gets defeated. He then lets us know that his name is Vermilion. And he's incredibly excited because we are apparently his first ever rival. And then he goes back inside the building. Apparently the way out of town's been blocked, so we have to go to a nearby inn where we run into Gala again. And she asks us if we want to share a room. Has she been pouncing on me on purpose? Also, apparently, a celebrity from Kanto arrived this morning with his grandson. And apparently they're upstairs right now. Okay, hold on a second. So then when we make our way upstairs to meet up with this celebrity from Kanto and his grandson, you expect it to be Professor Oak and Blue, but it's Red and his grandson Vermilion, which is one heck of a twist. And apparently Red and Vermilion are here for the exact same reason that Gala is. They want to visit the ancestral cemetery of her tribe. So I guess that this romantic stroll through the cemetery is no longer a date. And smelling a story nearby, Vera busts down the door. Vera asks Red for permission to interview him for her show, and when he tries to run away, she's not taking no for an answer. And with Vera, Red, and Pikachu gone, I guess only one extra wheel isn't so bad for our date. Oh, never mind, apparently everybody was tagging along anyways. Well, after a somewhat romantic stroll through some ancient catacombs, we find this weird drawing on the wall. Gala lets us know that this is a depiction of the Great Spirit, the creation deity that her tribe believes in. And according to legend, the Great Spirit also taught humanity how to bond with Pokémon. As the others continue to have a conversation, we feel ourselves drawn to the mural, and with a flash of light, our friends have vanished, and we see the spirits of the departed surround us. And we see another image of another Pokemon this time. And once again, before us, the visage of this doggo. Beyond the cosmos, beyond space, a cataclysm is coming that will end all life. And the doggo reveals itself. Come find Soap When we snap back to reality, only Gala remains. Apparently, she's been having these exact same visions as us. And then we're attacked by a bunch of Duscalops. But don't worry, here comes Red and his Pikachu. After returning to our room for the night, Gala asks if she can come in. She says she had to try her luck. And are you thinking what I'm thinking? All those times you've pounced on me. Is it true love? But then she totally ruins the vibe by asking if we also have visions. She lets us know that she's been having visions similar to what we've been having since she was very young. The same visions that Derringer's been having. The same visions our mother has been having. Ella reveals that her father is suffering the same way that our mother is, and wonders if these visions are hereditary. And that we need to find a way to not become like our parents. Together. She approaches us slowly and asks if us meeting was destiny. And just as I feel another pounce coming on, she leaves. The next morning before setting off, Vera asks about Red's secret love affair from when he was young. To which Vermilion replies, "Oh Grandpa, you can tell him about the Sinnoh League champion. You're telling me that Red in Cynthia." And then he runs off. Over on Route 8, we're going to grab ourselves an Applin, who we're going to nickname Caramel. In the Indigo Forest, we're going to grab ourselves a Spinarak, who we're going to nickname Loath. In the Indigo Forest, we run into Menendez, who says he plans on doing to us what his school teachers did to him. Humiliate you and break your dreams. But just before our epic showdown can begin, we find a child. But I'm going to throw it out there, there's something strange about this child. And just then, it reveals that the child was a little strange, because it was actually a phantom. And it was all a ploy and Menendez's stolen by a bunch of Ariados. After locating all the Ariados and beating up a bunch of them, we start searching through the spider cocoons. And after we find an unfortunate first one, our best friend Mondanez reveals himself. But more Ariados attack. But before we meet our bitter end against these ferocious spiders, Xatu, flash! Because we all know one thing that dark spiders are afraid of is psychic birds. And Mondanez sees this opportunity to shoot his shot, covered in the sticky silk of an Ariados. He's never glistened so brilliantly before. And after being turned down, he hops away. Now it's going to be time for us to take on Celine and her ghastly ghouls. She starts off by sending in a Drifblim, and we're going to send in Mittens. I'm going to start things off by going for a single Hone Claws, and hopefully it gives me enough attack power to take out this balloon, as it decides to go for a Calm Mind. On the following turn, we're going to go for a super effective Ice Fang, and we can grab ourselves the Oko on this hot air balloon. And fortunately, it's not packing Aftermath. Anyways, Frostlass comes in next, which is an awesome regional form. And I know that it's ground type, so we're going to go for another super effective Ice Fang, taking it down in one shot. Next out comes Chandelure. And now I'm in a little bit of a crappy spot because I don't have anything I can really do to this thing, as an Ice Fang only does about a third, but a Flame Burst does even less to me. On the following turn, we're going to go for another one, and now that we're at about half, one more Ice Fang takes out the Chandelure. This is going to lead into Mimikyu, her final Pokemon. And we're going to go for a Fire Fang, destroying its disguise. And the Mimikyu is going to go for a Swords Dance. Now risking it for the biscuit, we are going to go for a Stab Fire Fang, and at +1, it's more than enough to take out the Mimikyu. And with that, we've defeated Celine. And after our brilliant fight, the crowd rushes the arena, demanding that the Pokemon League come back. And it looks like Apollo's plan is finally working. I have single-handedly brought back the Pokemon League. Once we get back outside, Opalo gives us a call and lets us know that we need to meet up because we have a very important mission. And he's already here, so why did he have to call me? He lets us know that he has a planned interrogation with Derringer and asks if we want to sit in on it. And I'm not a cop or a government official, but I've always felt like I have this power over people. So yes, I would love to go to the prison. When we arrive at the prison, Professor Urbano has the exact same question I have. Why the heck am I here? So this all-star team is ready to interrogate the prisoner. Professor Urbano, a master of Pokemon and human psychology. Opalo, an important government official. And me, a guy who's good at Pokemon fights. Yes, of course I'm allowed to enter. This guy's a Pokemon trainer, isn't he? As Opalo interrogates Derringer, the leader of Team Gatling, he confirms what we suspected all along, that he's trying to reassemble Team Gatling from jail. Because just like us and Gala, he's been having dreams about an impending doom, and the astral Pokemon telling him that he is the only one who can save us all. He also says some really poignant stuff on social casts, nepotism, and a whole bunch of really crappy stuff that just happens in the real world, and that he and Team Gatling are the only ones that care about those who have been turned away from the rest of society. As Derringer continues to explain that the astral Pokemon only communes to those with a great spirit, we have a flash, and we see our spectral doggo once again. And Derringer recognizes that trance in our eyes. On our way out of the interrogation room, Derringer leaves us with a very cryptic message. It's been so nice meeting new friends, but it's time to say goodbye. And that's when the Dust Noir guards let loose all of the prisoners from their cells. And suddenly we're watching Hit Fox show from the mid-2000s, Prison Break. Okay, why are there wild Pokemon in this prison? We're gonna grab an Electrode. Who we're gonna nickname? Ball. We managed to track down Derringer, who's being assisted by Colt, who's brought him back his partner Pokemon, Greninja. And it looks like Colt is going to be covering Derringer's escape, which means it's time for us to take him on, Pokemon style. Colt sends in his fully evolved Salazzle, and we're going to send in Mittens. And on the first turn, I am going to go for a single Home Claws like I did every other time. And the Salazzle's going to go for a Flamethrower, doing honestly a little more than I expected. After that, we're going to go for an Empowered Return, where we can grab ourselves the Oko on the Salazzle. Next out's going to come Delibird. And we're going to go for a Stab Return on it as well, KOing it. That's what you get for KOing my Pokemon before, you silly bird. Out next comes Luxray, and once again we're going to outspeed and use the power of friendship to destroy this cat dog. And once Skarmory comes in as his final Pokemon, we can let loose a mighty Fire Fang, destroying this steely bird. And while we managed to defeat Colt, Derringer has unfortunately gotten away. Over on Route 12, we're going to grab ourselves a regional Golett, who we're going to nickname Eberron. Over on Route 11, we're going to grab an Elgyem, who we're going to name Doll. After we get into the poisonous swamp, we see a coughing crossing our path, which means I'm ready this time, and I turn to meet Gala's pounce head on. Much like the great Sandman's encounter with Videl, we find ourselves in an incredibly precarious position, and I guess that means now it's time for us to Pokemon battle our girlfriend. She's going to start off with Lycanroc, and we're going to send in Mittens. So afraid of a rock move, we're going to swap out, setting in Glenn as it goes for a Rock Glide, which we can resist. On the following turn, the Lycanroc is going to set up a Stealth Rock, and we are going to go for a Brick Break, scoring a massive hit and the Oko on the Lycanroc. Xatu comes in next, and afraid of a quad effective Psychic move, we're going to swap out, setting in the Winnie, as it does indeed try to go for a Psyshock. And we somehow outspeed this bird, going for a Crunch on the following turn, grabbing ourselves the KO on it, which is going to lead into Turtonator. And we're going to go for a Bulldoze, doing just about half, lowering the Turtonator's speed as it decides to go for a Flamethrower, getting us to about half. And now going for a Stab Crunch, we're going to get it down super low as a Dragon Pulse gets us down super low as well, and Gala decides to use Air Hyper Potion. And we decide to go for another Crunch, getting it down pretty low, where a Bulldoze is not quite enough to KO it. And that means another Dragon Pulse KOs Pooh. So we're going to send in Mittens, who's going to take a bit of damage from the Stealth Rocks. And as Gala uses another Hyper Potion, we are going to go for a Stab Empowered Return, scoring a massive hit on this thing, where one more can successfully take it down. In finally comes her ace Pokemon, Descargo, and we go for a Fire Fang, which unfortunately misses as it decides to go for a Discharge, getting us down quite low. And I know we can't take another one, so I'm going to swap Mittens out, this time sending in Leafy, as it goes for another Discharge, which we resist. Hoping it has an item so this knockoff does some more damage, we get rid of its berry, which does about a third, and another Discharge brings us to half. Now we're just going to start chopping this thing, because I have to hope I can get the flinch off, as another Discharge gets us down to just 45 HP. And another Bite brings us down pretty low, as the Discharge gets us down to just 14. And with one more Bite, we can take down the Descargo, and we defeat Gala. And fresh out of the poisonous swamp, we run into our friends again. And it looks like we're about to have a beach episode, folks. And after switching into her bathing suit, Gala pounces into the water. And just like that, Montanez removes his shirt to reveal he has unusually nice abs. And he too practices and masters the pounce. While enjoying this beautiful beach episode, Montanez also reveals that his name is Montanez. And of course it is. With Pooh fainting, we're going to take our Eevee and give it the wind boon that I got from a side quest I forgot to show earlier, and evolve it into this regional Pokemon of Sephiroth. Because this thing is packing Lightning Rod, and we're about to face off against the Electric Gym. And with the level cap raised, Flipper can finally also evolve into its final form of Narvalor. While getting ready to challenge our next gym, we're also going to fish up a horsey, who we're going to nickname Sylph. And now it's time for us to officially take on Dalio and his electric Pokemon. Dalio starts off with Galvantula, and we're going to send in Bean. On the first turn, we are going to set up a light screen because, well, I need to set up a light screen. And after that, it's going to go for a Bug Buzz, which we can resist, but on a crit, it does a bit of damage to us. And after that, we're going to go ahead and set up a Tailwind in case we need to swap out, as the Galvantula then goes for an Energy Ball that does next to nothing. And after that, we can go ahead and go for an Air Slash, bringing it down into the red, as another Energy Ball does basically nothing to us. Dalio then uses a Full Restore, and we can go for another Air Slash, as another Full Restore heals the Galvantula up. But with 2 more, we take it down. Next, now it's going to come Lantern. And we can go for an Air Slash that only does about a quarter to it, as it goes for a super effective Ice Beam that luckily we can resist most of because of our light screen. I'm then going to swap Bean out and instead send in Glenn, as it goes for another Ice Beam that we can resist. With the light screen gone, I need to be careful here, but we're going to go for a Brick Break, bringing it down just below half, as a Discharge does a massive amount of damage to us on a crit, and now we're paralyzed. Assuming another Discharge, I'm going to swap Glenn out and instead send in Bean, as I call it, and the Discharge is going to go ahead and activate our Lightning Rod. And now at +2, we can go for a Shadow Ball, bringing the Lantern down super low, but not low enough before our Sephion gets KO'd. So we're going to go ahead and send in Leafy, who with the Seed Bomb can safely take down the Lantern. Toxtricity is going to come in as his next Pokemon, and I'm going to go for a knockoff, doing about 50%, getting rid of the Poison Barb, as it goes for a Sludge Wave, scoring a massive critical hit, KOing Leafy, as well as our monkey goes down. So in comes Mittens, and we're going to go for a single Hone Claws, because I assume I can tank 1 hit from this thing, as it decides to go for a Discharge, doing just about 50%, and it gets the paralysis off on us. So it then follows up with a Sludge Wave, KOing Mittens as well. So in comes Flipper, who's going to outspeed, going for a Stone Edge, KOing the Toxtricity. Up next comes Magnezone, and I'm going to swap Flipper out, sending in Bonk, as the Magnezone decides to try to go for a Discharge, which obviously we can resist. And we can go for a quad effective Boomerang, bringing this thing down to its sturdy, but with the second hit, we can grab ourselves the KO. And with her team absolutely decimated, his ace at Regional Altaria comes in. And it decides to go for a Dragon Pulse, doing about 50%, and we can go for a Boomerang, which unfortunately we miss, as another Dragon Pulse comes in, knocking us down to just 22 HP. We can successfully bring this thing down with a Boomerang, taking down Dalio's final Pokemon, but we lost half of our team, and the MVP of our run so far with Mittens. And with our victory, despite what the president has to say, Dalio, the richest man in Alessefria, is gonna open his own Pokemon League. So we best get ready, because anybody, young or old, good or bad at Pokemon training, if you want to become a champion, the private sector will do what the government can't. Needing to rebuild our party, let's make some new additions. First up is going to be Caramel, who we are going to evolve right away into an Appleton. Next up is going to be Eberron, who is also going to evolve, taking this awesome form of this fantastic regional Golurk. And last but certainly not least, this absolutely horrifying Loath is going to evolve into Ariados. After earning our 6th badge, Opalo wants us to meet up with him on the beach, so we can have a quiet moment together like we did when we were children, and he asks us if we would like to have a Pokemon battle. And who am I to say no to Pokemoning? Lore starts off by sending in a Mamoswine, and we're going to send in Bonk. And absolutely terrified, we're going to swap out, sending in Flipper right away, as he goes for a Rock Slide, which is super effective against Flipper. So I guess we're going to swap out again, and we're going to send in Glenn instead, as he goes for another Rock Slide, which we can go ahead and resist. Even on a crit, it doesn't do that much damage. We can then fire back with a super effective Brick Break, bringing this thing down to about a third, as it decides to go for a Bulldoze this time, absolutely decimating our Frog. So I guess here comes Eberron. And Apollo's going to take this opportunity to use a full restore, and I have to hope that a Steam Shock is more than enough to take out the Mamoswine in one, and it's not. But now, assuming another ground move, we're going to swap out Eberron and send in Loath as he uses another full restore. Guess we're swapping out again, sending in Bonk, as he goes for a stealth rock, and I am not reading this guy at all. Anywho, he's going to go for a rock slide, doing a bit of chip damage to us, and we can go for a boomerang, getting him way down into the red again. After that, the Mamoswine's going to go for an ice shard, bringing us down below half, but we can stay in, going for one more boomerang, taking out the Mamoswine. Empoleon's going to come in as his next Pokemon. And I'm going to swap out Bonk, and I'm going to go ahead, sending in Caramel, as it tries to go for a Flash Cannon on us. After that, it's going to go for a super effective Signal Beam, doing some good damage to us, and we can fire back with a Giga Drain, getting him down just below half on a crit, healing back up considerably. Another Signal Beam is going to come in, getting us down to just 56 HP, and we can go for another Giga Drain, bringing down the Empoleon. Darmanitan comes in, and I have to hope a neutral Fire Punch doesn't KO us, and it doesn't, and I can go ahead, going for another Giga Drain, healing back up to a decent amount. And I know it's risky, but we're going to swap Caramel out and then send in Flipper, as I take quite a bit of damage from the stones, and he's going to go ahead and U-turn out, getting me down to just 7 HP. Sending in his Alakazam. Though knowing I can't send Flipper in again, we're going to swap out, sending in Loath, assuming a Psychic move, as the Stealth Rocks do some decent damage to us. He goes for a Focus Blast, which luckily misses. He is then going to go for another Focus Blast, which he misses yet again, and we can go for a super effective Leech Life, taking down the Alakazam in just one shot. Darmanitan comes back in, and it outspeeds us, going for a Fire Punch, scoring a massive hit, KOing Loath in one, but I didn't really have a better option here. So in comes Eberron, who can go ahead, tanking a Rock Slide, and we can go for a super effective high horsepower, KOing the Darmanitan, which is going to lead into his ace Pokemon, Braviary, who's going to go for a U-turn, doing barely anything to us, and we can go for a Steam Shock, doing a good amount of damage, but lowering our own speed. It's then going to go for another U-turn, but there's nowhere for it to run, and we can take down this Braviary, but we just lost 2 more Pokemon, and I was really excited for that Ariados. After our battle, Apollo reveals to us that he wants to become the president. He reveals that that's why he's been trying to work so hard with Dalio, because of his influence. And he hopes that if he can officially take down Team Gatling, that'll make him a good candidate and people will believe in him. And he officially asks us, a guy who until 6 months ago shared a bed with his dad as a fully grown man, to be his vice president. Though needing to rebuild our team again, we're going to add in Doll and evolve them right away into a Bohemian. And next up is going to be Pika-Blue, who after force-feeding a candy, can successfully evolve into the absolutely majestic Azumarill. Okay, I don't know why, but my Appleton is following me backwards. I had to break the story for a second because this is hilarious. Once we get to the super high-tech Tempest City, we meet up with Professor Opalo and Gala in front of this lab. The two of them have been talking recently regarding the visions that Gala's been having, and the professor reveals that Derringer, Gala, my mother, and myself aren't the only people throughout history who have had these visions, and he knows just who we need to talk to. And once we head inside, we're introduced to our 7th gym leader, Peonia, the head researcher in Tempest City. And after we head upstairs, we are introduced to her clone, who she decided to make blonde because she wishes she was blonde. And Professor Rabano doesn't want to tell us how he found out she was a clone. And now with the power of 2 Peonias, it's time for them to tell us the tale of the legendary Pokemon known as Astrum. Hundreds of years ago, the natives of Zephyria and settlers were constantly fighting for control of this territory. And just before a battle that would have wiped out every human as well as Pokemon, a mysterious Pokemon appeared who looked a lot like Zacian, and with a tremendous roar, the fighting stopped. But as soon as Astrum had shown itself to the world, but because it interfered with the course of human history, it was locked away forever in the astral plane. And with this information in hand, our next objective is clear: to climb the Astral Tower and find out the truth. Outside of the Astral Tower, we're going to find ourselves at Regional Makuhita, who we're going to nickname Gansett. And in the Astral Tower, we're going to grab ourselves a Hatterim, who we're going to nickname Lulu. But once we get to the Astral Tower, it turns out that Derringer and Team Gatling are already here. And after sicking Team Gatling on my 2 best friends, Derringer lets us know that Gala is special, and she is to be captured immediately. And it looks like it's going to be time for us to face off against Winchester. Winchester starts off with the Scolipede, and we are going to be sending in Caramel. And we are immediately going to be swapping out Caramel and sending in Eberron as it decides to go for a Poison Jab, which we can obviously avoid. On the following turn, the Scolipede is going to go for a Swords Dance, and we can go for a Steam Shock, grabbing ourselves the KO in 1. Next out comes Excadrill. And assuming a ground move, I'm going to swap out, sending in Flipper, and I don't know why the text just got super small, and I have no idea what move he used. But I'm going to go for a super effective Razor Shell right away, taking out the Excadrill. Next out comes Conkeldurr. And realizing I have a severe weakness against fighting Pokemon, we are going to swap out, setting in Doll as he goes for a Thunder Punch. After that, a Fire Punch is going to take us down to just a third as we fire off a Psychic and we can quickly pick up the KO. Next up comes his ace Pokemon Sharpedo, who we are going to once again swap out Doll and then send Caramel back in as it goes for a Zen Headbutt. Another Zen Headbutt's going to get us down to about half as we go for a massive Giga Drain, sucking up all this Sharpedo's energy, healing ourselves back up to basically full. And we've defeated Winchester. After Winchester's humiliating defeat, he reveals that his plan was to start a farm with Derringer when this was all over and raise chickens together. To which Gala responds, "What are chickens?" Which I'm going to throw out there. I love the joke, because yeah, what are chickens? But after a rousing speech from Mundanez, because nobody likes him either, Winchester decides to do the right thing and turn himself into the authorities and give up his beautiful, simple life of chickens. We catch up with Derringer at the top of the tower, at an altar dedicated to Astrum, where he once again tells us that he is the chosen one who will save the world, not us. And even though we may be getting similar visions to him, he is the only one that truly matters, and that he is the only one who's ready to save this world. And after summoning his Greninja, Licky and Xatu take action, attempting to hold the Greninja back. But with a Dark Pulse, he slams both of their Pokemon away, and it looks like it's going to be time for us to face off against Derringer and his rock-hard abs. Derringer starts off with Dragalge, and we're going to send in Caramel. And assuming either a Dragon move or a Poison move, I'm hoping it's a Dragon move, and I called it wrong, as a Sludge Bomb immediately KOs Pika Blue. So I guess we'll send in Doll. And after we take another Sludge Bomb, we're going to get knocked down to only 30 HP before going for a Calm Mind. So we're going to swap out, sending in Eberron instead, as it changes things up, going for a Dragon Pulse. We're then going to outspeed the Dragalge, go for a high horsepower, and bring this thing down way into the red as it fires off a Thunderbolt, doing a bit of damage to us. Derringer is then going to heal up with a Hyper Potion, and we can go for another high horsepower, bringing this thing back down into the red. After that, he's going to go ahead and do the same darn thing once again. But then he's going to swap out, sending in Durant instead, and we can go for another high horsepower, doing about a third. And then after tanking an Iron Head from this thing, we can go for a Steam Shock, taking out the Durant. Out next comes Gliscor. So we're going to swap out, and I'm going to send in Bonk instead as he goes for an Earthquake, doing about half to us. It's then going to go for an Acrobatics, getting us down to just 18 HP, and I throw everything into a Stone Edge that I miss. Knowing I need a clean swap, I have to keep Bonk in, and unfortunately, our friend goes down. So we're going to go ahead, sending in Flipper, where I'm going to go for a single Swords Dance, hoping that I can tank whatever this thing throws at me, and an Earthquake does about a third. So we go for a super effective Stab plus 2 Ice Shard, taking out the Gliscor. Dragalge is going to come back in, and we're going to stay in, going for another Ice Shard, taking out the Dragalge. Out next is going to come his Grimmsnarl, and going for a Razor Shell, we can go ahead and take this thing down way into the red as it goes for a Drain Punch on our starter Pokemon, getting me down to just 10 HP. But with an Ice Shard, we can successfully take down this monster, which is going to lead into his ace, Greninja. So we're going to swap Flipper out, and I'm going to go ahead, sending in Caramel as he decides to go for a Hydro Pump, which does basically nothing. After that, he's going to switch things up, going for a Dark Pulse. Unfortunately, we don't flinch. And going for his super effective Giga Drain, we can OHKO the Greninja, healing ourselves back up to full. And we've lost some more Pokemon, but at least we've defeated Derringer. And after Derringer's defeat, by the rules of Pokemon battle, you're under arrest. And showing his true colors, Derringer quickly uses a revive on his Greninja and has it kidnap Mundanez. And while holding our bestest buddy hostage, he deciphers the ancient text, figuring out how to reach the next step of his plan. And guess what? Mundanez is coming with him. But joke's on you, Derringer. This blue-haired lady can also read ancient writing. And while Gala goes to research our next step, we need to report back to Opalo and let him know what's going on. Needing to reform our party again, we're going to add in Light Bright and have it evolve into a Lantern. And it looks like it's going to be time for us to take on the Double Peonia for our 7th badge. And I didn't realize this was a double battle as Claydol and Sigilif come in and we're gonna send in Doll and Flipper. But this actually kind of works out, so I'm gonna have Flipper go for a Swords Dance, as Sigilif goes for an Air Slash, doing quite a bit more than I expected, and then going for a Rock Slide. Flipper's gonna get knocked down just below half as Doll then sets up a Calm Mind. Flipper is then gonna go for a Night Slash on the Sigilif, grabbing the KO in just one shot. Claydol then goes for a Psychic on Flipper and bringing it down to, like, literally nothing. And then we can fire off a Shadow Ball, getting the Claydol down super low as Gardevoir gets sent in next. I'm then going to swap out Flipper and then send in Ball, assuming that they're going to heal up Claydol, which they do. Gardevoir then goes for a Thunderbolt on Ball, doing barely anything, and then I can go for a Shadow Ball on Gardevoir, getting it down super low. They're then going to go for another full restore, and I can have Ball set up a light screen to improve our already fantastic special defense as the Claydol goes for an Earthquake, but joke's on all of us. Claydol doesn't have very good attack, but except the joke's on Ball, who goes down. And with another Shadow Ball, we can successfully take out Gardevoir. Their Ace Hariyama comes in, and I'm going to be sending in Light Bright. Claydol is then going to go for a Cosmic Power, while Light Bright goes for a Discharge, which I forgot would hit my own team, but whatever, and Hariyama is going to get paralyzed, which is fantastic, as it then goes for a Calm Mind of its own. Doll then goes for a Shadow Ball on Hariyama, bringing it down way into the red. Claydol goes for another Earthquake, bringing Doll down just below half, and then getting a good hit off on Light Bright, but then Light Bright can return fire with a Signal Beam, doing barely anything to Claydol, as then Hariyama goes down. We're then going to pivot, sending Light Bright back in, and then sending in Caramel, as it then goes for another Earthquake, bringing Doll down pretty low and doing some minimal damage to Caramel. And then Shadow Ball is going to take the Claydol down wicked low. It then goes for a Psychic on Doll, doing like literally one, and with one more Shadow Ball, down goes Claydol, and we earn our 7th badge, but at the cost of yet another Pokemon. And with our box looking incredibly sparse, we are going to add Gansett into the party and evolve it right away into this awesome regional Hariyama. Battle, we head back over to the lab, where Winchester is ready to testify to get a reduced sentence. He reveals why he joined Team Gatling in the first place, but also reveals one other thing. The bombing at the Pokémon League 7 years ago wasn't a bomb. It was an experiment that the government was working on. Now let's take a look back into the past, 7 years ago. And Winchester asks us, what happens when a group of very strong trainers fight each other? You guessed it, the production of Pokésense. And under the stadium was a lab collecting that Pokésense. But the energy, too much. The explosion, imminent. And with the sudden flash, it was all gone. The president then met with Derringer shortly thereafter, where he promised to take care of all the members of Team Gatling if they disbanded and Derringer took the blame. He would then work with him to get him a reduced sentence. And Derringer agreed to these terms, and everything was going according to plan, until Derringer started having visions of Astrum, and he declared that Team Gatling needed to get back together, and he needed to be released. Winchester then let us know that the signed contract from President Mustang detailing all of this is locked away in their secret base under a restaurant in Austral City. Winchester says that he'll accompany us to infiltrate Team Gatling's secret base and steal back the contract as proof. Before setting off, we meet up with Professor Opalo outside the lab, where he reveals that he was the original inventor of the Pokésense machine, but for personal reasons he had to abandon the project. So in a way, is he responsible for that explosion? In Team Gatling's base, we're going to grab ourselves a Larion, who we're going to nickname Tank. After searching through Team Gatling's secret base, we find Mundenez inside of this jail cell. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of forgot that he got taken. But fortunately, the safe is also in this room. With the documents secured and Mundenez free, we can finally expose the president and then figure out how to save the world. Once we finish fighting our way through the secret base and taking an elevator up, we find ourselves in a government building. After battling these two Secret Service agents, Opalo enters frame, and I'm pretty sure this is where he's gonna have his villain reveal moment. President Mustang lets us know that if we tell anybody, he'd hate for something to happen to our mother. But with that command, Opalo summons his Braviary, who calls the president out for trying to extort us through our family members. And it turns out Opalo isn't a bad guy. He only knew about this because Dalio told him. And now that we've secured the documents, somebody's got to take the president's place. And now I guess it's gonna be time for us to face off against the president in a double battle to decide who the president is. Anyway, Sirfetch'd and Absol come in up against Doll and Braviary. So I'm gonna swap out Doll and then send in Gansett as the Braviary goes for a U-turn on Absol, grabbing a massive hit as he swaps out, sending in Empoleon. The Absol is then going to go for a Night Slash on Gansett, doing barely anything, as Sirfetch'd then goes for a Carve on Empoleon. President Mustang then decides to use a full restore on his Absol, as the Empoleon goes for a Surf, doing a big hit to us, ganging Absol down just below half and getting Sirfetch'd down as well. All before I get knocked down to like literally nothing and we can take out the Absol. Out next is going to come his Nidoking. And assuming he's going to use another Surf, I'm going to swap out, sending in Flipper as the Nidoking goes for a Sludge Bomb, which scores a massive critical hit on us, and it poisons us. After that, the Empoleon's going to use Surf, getting us down super low as the Nidoking gets knocked down to just basically nothing, and the Sirfetch'd gets KO'd. And after the poison damage, we are barely up as Metagross comes in. And now I remember that Eberron actually has Water Absorb, so we're going to swap out as Mustang, use the full restore on Nidoking, and the Empoleon decides to go for a Signal Beam this time because reasons, and Metagross then goes for a Zen Headbutt on us. Nidoking is then going to use a quad super effective Earth Power on Eberron, KOing him immediately. And then a Surf from Empoleon is going to take Nidoking down and bring Metagross down to half, as a Hammer On from the Metagross comes in on Empoleon, getting him down way into the red. So I guess I'll send in Doll, as President Mustang sends in his own Braviary. Braviary is then going to go for a Rock Slide, getting Doll down about 25% and KOing Empoleon. Metagross then goes for a Zen Headbutt on Doll, getting him to 50%, and then I can fire off a Shadow Ball on the Metagross, getting him down way into the red, which is going to lead into Opalo sending in Alakazam. And we are suffering over here. I'm going to swap out, sending in Light Bright, as the Alakazam goes for a Shadow Ball, KOing Metagross. As the Braviary then goes for a Thrash on Alakazam, getting him down pretty low, but he holds on with a Focus Sash. A Psyshock on the Braviary is then going to get him down to about half, as a Thrash officially takes down the Alakazam. Then we can go for a Discharge, finishing off Braviary. And unfortunately, we lost one of our best Pokemon, but we did defeat the President. And by the rules of Pokemon Battle, we are officially the new President and Vice President. And just as the President tries to turn a gun onto himself, Apollo's Braviary knocks it from his hands, preventing him. Over the next few weeks after the scandal with the President, an emergency election was called, and with the endorsement from Jin leaders as well as other notable figures like Professor Urbano, he was declared the new President of Sephria. But this isn't about to be the happy ending that you think it is. Something terrible was brewing in the northern mountains. The Pokemon knew something that the people didn't know yet, but they would soon. After taking a well-deserved vacation after defeating Team Gatling and the President, the time has come for us to do the most important thing, and that's not save the world, it's to get our 8th and final badge. But now enter Professor Buzzkill, who reminds me we have to save the world and stop Derringer once and for all. And he thinks he knows where he's heading. So maybe we'll do that before we get our 8th badge. And to fill up the last slot in our party again, we are going to add Tankin and have it evolve right away into an Aggron. Over on Route 13 on our way up to the Boreal Mountains, here comes Gala with a mighty leap, but this time not onto me. Which, while incredibly disappointing, it does seem as though she does want to have a practice Pokemon battle with us so we can make sure that we're ready to face off against Derringer. And that's almost as good as leaping into my arms. Gala starts off by sending in her Lycanroc, and we are going to be sending in Doll. It's going to go for a Stone Edge right away, doing about a third to us as we decide to go for a Calm Mind to bulk up a bit. After that, it's going to go for a super effective Crunch, getting us down to just 6 HP. And we can fire off a +1 Psychic, taking down the Lycanroc. Next out comes Mienshao. And I'm going to swap Doll out, this time sending in Caramel as it goes for a high jump kick, which scores a massive hit on us. And after that, it goes for a U-turn, knocking me down to just 3 HP as she swaps out, sending in Turtonator. We do like nothing to it. So we're gonna swap out, taking Caramel out and then sending in Tank, as this thing goes for a flamethrower on us, doing a decent amount of damage. We're then gonna outspeed, go for a Stone Edge, and miss, as it goes for another flamethrower, getting us down just below half. After that, she's gonna swap out Turtonator and send Mienshao back in, and I miss a second Stone Edge. So we are gonna swap out again, this time sending in Light Bright, as it goes for a high jump kick, scoring a massive hit on us, taking us down super duper low. And after that, with a U-turn, Light Bright goes down, and Gala sends Turtonator back in. So I guess I'll send in Flipper, and we're gonna go for a Swords Dance right away to double our attack, as the Turtonator goes for a Flamethrower, which is gonna be neutral and do quite a bit of damage to us, and on a crit no less. So now going for a Stab Liquidation at +2, we take out the Turtonator. Next out is gonna come Mienshao, who we can outspeed, going for a +2 Liquidation, and we can take it out in one shot as well. Her fully evolved guest Tesla comes in next, and we're gonna go for a +2 Stab super effective Ice Shard, and it scores a crit Oko on this giant snail, which is gonna lead into her final Pokemon, Xatu. And once again, we can go for a Stab +2 super effective Ice Shard, taking out this Birdo. And I feel like I'm losing a Pokemon like every fight in the late game. So I guess we'll meet up with Gala in Caselda City so we can move out to the mountains. On Route 13, we're going to grab ourselves a Bolton, who we're going to nickname Pluto. Once reaching Sensalata City, we are going to Wonder Trade our Fainted Bean for a Dracozolt. And welcome to the squad, little buddy, who we're going to nickname Figment. Over on Route 14, we're going to grab a Weirdeer, who we're going to nickname Donner. After passing out in the mountains, we find ourselves in a mystery cabin. And in this mystery cabin, Gala, and our 8th and final gym leader, the Master Mountain Climber, Brezo. After asking us why we want to climb the mountain so badly, Gala says that it is an important matter for not only the region, but potentially the entire world. And Brezo reveals what we learned about like a few minutes ago in that little flash forward about how Pokemon in the area have just started disappearing. Not migrating, just vanishing. And that there's an altar at the top of the Borealis Mountains that connects directly to the astral plane. Theorizes that the Pokemon have been retreating up the mountain and into the astral plane for safety from whatever's about to happen down here in the real world. Brezo then lets us know that we can spend the night while the blizzard dies out, and he even left us one big blanket here in the kitchen to sleep on. But as we drift off to Dreamland, another vision before us. And we hear a mysterious conversation going on, and someone realizes that we're here. After we wake up the following morning, Gala has had the exact same dream again, because we, after all, are dream buddies. The following morning, once we head outside, Brezo shows us the entrance to the Borealis Mountains, and after we save the world, he'll be ready for that gym battle. At the foot of the Borealis Mountains, we find ourselves a regional Lopunny, an ice fighting type, who we're gonna nickname Lola. And in an ice cavern, we're gonna find ourselves Vanillux, who we're gonna name DQ. Alright, so my computer crashed, so I'm gonna do a quick recap of what we missed. We continued to chase Derringer up Mount Boreal. He then warned us not to keep following him, otherwise the same thing that would happen to Gala's brother would happen to us. A thing that she totally did not want to talk about. And after resting in a nearby cave because she twisted her ankle super bad from being pushed all the way down a mountain, we saw the legendary Pokemon Astrum, which we followed, and now we ran into Derringer again. Gala confronting Derringer about her long-lost brother. Gala confronts Derringer about her long-lost brother, to which he replies, he's no longer the same person you knew. It's best you forgot about him. But she can't forget about him. It's why she left her tribe, probably. And now it's gonna be time for us to face off against Derringer and his rock-hard abs. Once again, Derringer starts off by sending in Dragalge, and we send in Doll. It's gonna go for a Sludge Bomb, doing about a third to us, and I'm gonna fire back with a Psychic right away, taking out the Dragalge. Next out comes Glalie. And I have no idea what this thing is, but I'm assuming it's flying type, so we're gonna send in Pluto as it goes for an Acrobatics, which we can resist, and it still does a crap ton of damage to us. After that, we're gonna go for a super effective Spark, doing about 60%, and we get the paralysis off, but then I get knocked down to just 8 HP and then KO with something called Terrible Eyes. So I guess we're sending in Flipper. And knowing Derringer's gonna heal up with a full restore, I take this opportunity to go for a free Swords Dance. And joke's on you, Weather. I'm Ice type. And with an Ice Shard, we take down Glalie. Next out comes Durant. who's going to outspeed us with a Rock Slide doing almost 50% on the first turn, and we can go for a +2 liquidation, taking out the Durant in 1. Out next comes Grimmsnarl, who we can outspeed going for a +2 liquidation yet again, and fortunately it's enough, but just barely. Which leads into Greninja. Not wanting to risk my starter, we're going to swap out, sending in Caramel as this thing goes for a Dark Pulse, doing about a third to us. After that, it goes for a quad super effective Ice Beam, getting me down to just 13 HP. But with a Giga Drain, we are able to withstand the Greninja's onslaught, taking it out in just one shot. Which leads into Gliscor. And I'm going to swap Caramel out, sending in Tank, assuming that this thing hopefully doesn't have Earthquake. But of course it does. And a quad super effective Earthquake obviously KOs Tank immediately. So here comes Slipper. And I probably should have just tanked something, and I go for a super effective Ice Shard. But because of a Yacha Berry, he stays up, and now we're knocked down to just 57 HP. And we're poisoned. Derringer then uses the full restore, and we can go for another Ice Shard, scoring a crit, KOing Gliscor, and we come out on top, defeating Derringer once and for all. After defeating Derringer, Gala pleads with him to have the three of us work together. It's obvious that's what we're supposed to do. But if he isn't the true chosen one, all of the horrible things that he's done throughout his life, assuming that he had to do it, will have been for nothing. So he vows he'll still reach Astrum before any of us. But then he goes the wrong way. So I'm pretty sure he's just not gonna make it. After finally reaching the top of the mountain, we find the altar with the Eternal Flame. Gala then tosses her flower into the Eternal Flame. Everything gets just like a little foggy. And now it's all become so clear. We're tripping again. And we find ourselves within the Soul Stone. Just like Melia in Pokemon Z, before Astrum. He can talk! And now it's time for us to face off against Astrum as we send in Doll, who's gonna go for a Mystical Fire doing barely any damage to us, and we can fire off a Shadow Ball doing about 60%. On the following turn, it's gonna go for another Mystical Fire for reasons I cannot possibly comprehend, which means after one more Shadow Ball, we take down this legendary Pokemon. And apparently this match is not counted in the Nuzlocke, but I didn't need it. Now back in the real world, we see Astrum standing on the pedestal, and apparently we've passed its test. Gala demands to know why our families were chosen, and why so many people who hear its call lose their minds. Astrum reveals that it wasn't specifically for us. He sent his message all across the world, but there are only certain humans that are able to communicate with the spiritual realm. He then asked for forgiveness in hurting our family members, but it was all necessary to save everything. Astrum then interjects to explain the origin of Pokemon in this world. The entity known as the Great Spirit came here millions of years ago from outer space and populated this world with the creatures that we know as Pokemon. And over time, the Pokemon of Earth became a diverse and extraordinary group of creatures. But what the Great Spirit did not intend for was for another life form to develop and evolve alongside Pokemon, and that was human beings. Like Astrum had mentioned mere moments ago, the Great Spirit traveled to many planets, and on each one he created many different types of Pokemon. And one creation in particular was the most ravenous and cruel Pokemon ever created. And it became so powerful that it unicroned its entire planet. And for millions of years, he's been galactusing and unicroning all over the universe. And it turns out, we're next. And this Pokemon's name is Uktena. Seeing no alternative, the Great Spirit plans on rounding up all of the Pokemon here on Earth, taking them back into space or in the astral plane, leaving humans to fend for themselves. But without Pokemon, we don't stand a chance. Astrum then lets us know that there's a certain someone who should be able to help us, and they're over in West Zephyria. And we'll meet them 28 days from now, which is oddly specific. But with that out of the way, let's get back to important things, like getting that 8th badge. And now it's time for us to take on Brazo and his Ice Pokemon for our final badge. Frostmoth comes in first, and I'm going to be sending in Lola. Luckily, we're super fast and pack an Iron Fist, so we can go for a Fire Punch right away, taking out the Frostmoth. After that, Beartic's going to come up next, and once again, we can go for a super effective Fire Punch, doing just about 50%, as it goes for a superpower, getting me down to just 3 HP. Brazo is then going to use his first full restore, and we can go for another Fire Punch, and I miss. So we're going to swap out Lola and instead send in Gansett as he goes for an Aqua Jet. He then goes for a Play Rough, doing a bit of damage to us as I decide to go for one Calm Mind. And after taking another Play Rough, I'm going to fire off a Stab Aura Sphere, grabbing the Oko on Beartick. Next up comes Mamoswine, who's going to go for an Icicle Crash, doing barely anything as I go for Recover to heal back up. And after taking another Icicle Crash, we can go for another Aura Sphere, taking out Mamoswine. His own Lupais comes out next, who's going to go for a high jump kick, scoring a pretty decent hit on us despite the fact that it's not very effective, and we can go for a +1 Stab Aura Sphere, taking down the Lupais in one shot. Which leads into Walrein, his final Pokemon, who goes for... And after going for a Protect on the first turn, we obviously don't get to hit it with our Aura Sphere. And once it goes for an Icy Wind, it's going to lower our already really bad speed, and we can go for one more Aura Sphere, grabbing a massive hit on the Walrein and taking it down. And with that, we've acquired our 8th and final badge. After beating up this old guy, he decides to gift us either an Elekid or a Magby, and I'm going to choose Elekid, who we're going to nickname Anchor. We meet up with Dalio, Gala, Vermilion, and Red over at the Cantina in Tramontana City. We are here so Dalio can explain to us how the new and improved Pokemon League is going to work. Is it Vermilion, Mondanez, Gala, and I are going to face off against one another, and the winner of that round-robin tournament the following day will face off 3 of the 8 gym leaders, and they're going to be going all out. If we manage to also defeat the gym leaders, then we face off against Professor Ebano, who will be the stand-in as the champion of the region. And if we manage to defeat Professor Ebano, we will be crowned the champion of the Sephria region. Over on Route 16, we're going to grab ourselves a Gilgar, who we're going to nickname Rouge. On something called the Return Path, we're going to grab ourselves an Onyx. Hold on a second, I didn't realize that Lola was going to evolve, and after getting to level 58, our Lopunny evolves into a Luprise. I thought they just changed the name of Lopunny. Cool! Over in the Return Cave, we're going to grab ourselves a Ferroseed, who we're going to nickname Petey. On the first part of Victory Road, we're going to grab our Anthino, who we're going to nickname Lo-Fi. Wanting to make some adjustments to our team, we're going to go ahead and add Rouge into the party and evolve her right away into a Gliscor. And then next up is going to be Anchor, who we're going to start evolving right away as well. First, into the amazing Electabuzz. And then Anchor is going to evolve one more time into his final miraculous form of Electivire. And now it's going to be time for us to face off against Gala in our first Elite Four challenge. She starts off by setting in Lycanroc, and I should realize that by now as Rogue comes in. I'm going to go for a Swords Dance on the first turn because I assume I can tank one Stone Edge as it decides to go for a Crunch instead, doing barely anything to us. And now at +2, we can go for a super effective Stab Bulldoze, taking down the Doggo. Turtonator comes in next, and once again we're going to go for another Bulldoze on this Draco, getting it down pretty low. And the Turtonator is going to respond with a Flamethrower, doing a good amount of damage to us. Gala is then going to use her first full restore, and we can go for another super effective Bulldoze. Since I know she's going to heal up again, we're going to go for another Swords Dance to get to +4. And then going for another Bulldoze, which is empowered even more, we can take out the Turtonator. Up next is going to be Xatu, and firing off a super effective Night Slash is more than enough to take out this Birdo. Next up is going to come Mienshao, and we're going to knock it down to its Focus Sash as it decides to go for a U-turn, doing barely anything, and he's going to swap out, sending in Gas Tesla. And with the big slug in there, we're going to go for a +4 Bulldoze, getting it down just below half as this thing goes for a Giga Drain, scoring a pretty big hit on us. We're then going to go for another Bulldoze, bringing it down way into the red. And going for another Giga Drain, it's going to score a massive hit on us, getting it down to just 32 HP. And knowing I can't really afford to risk this, we're going to swap out, setting in Caramel as it goes for another Giga Drain, which should do barely anything to us. I'm then going to fire off a Dragon Pulse, getting it down pretty low, and with a second one taking it down. Mienshao's going to come back in as her final Pokemon. It's going to go for a high jump kick on us, scoring a massive hit, getting us down to just 27 HP. But another Dragon Pulse takes it out, and with that, we've defeated Gala. And now it's time for us to face off against Vermilion for our second challenge. Who's going to start off by sending in Pidgeot, and we're sending in Rogue. I mean, Rouge. Anyways, we're going to go for a Swords Dance as a Steel Wing does what it does. And once we get to +4, this thing's gonna go for a feather dance, basically counteracting that one sword stance. And now we're back at +2 again, so I should probably just smack this thing in the face. And now that we're back to neutral damage, we're gonna get this thing down into the red, and now at -2, he's gonna use his first full restore. So we're gonna get to +4 successfully this time, go for a nice slash, doing about 50% as it goes for a fly. Now we can easily get up to +6 as we get hit with a fly, and then return with another nice slash, taking down this thick bird. Out next comes Poliwrath, and going for a bulldoze, we're gonna get it down pretty low as it goes for a bulk up. And when Vermilion uses his first full restore, we can go for another 2 bulldozes, taking it down. Up next is gonna come Gyarados, who's gonna get us down to +5, and I'm really suspecting that maybe I'm not as high as I thought I was. So we're gonna go for another one as it goes for a super effective Aqua Tail, and I completely didn't even consider that before I take it out. Up next comes Snorlax. And we're gonna swap out, setting in Gansett as this thing goes for a Body Slam, getting the paralysis off on us. And after hitting us with a Fire Punch, I'm gonna use a Calm Mind just once, before I go for an Aura Sphere, getting it down pretty low. He's then gonna swap out, sending in his Raichu as I go for another Aura Sphere, scoring a crit and grabbing the Oko, which will lead back into Snorlax. And with a Thunder Punch getting me down to about half, I'm unfortunately paralyzed as another Body Slam connects, but we can take it out with another Aura Sphere. And with that, we've defeated Vermilion. And even though that's not exactly how this is supposed to work, it's going to be time for us to face off against Mundanez for our third and final challenge of Phase 1. Mundanez sends in Medicham, and I'm sending in Rogue. And I'm going to go for a Swords Dance right away as this thing goes for an Ice Punch, scoring a massive hit on us. So I guess we're swapping in Flipper as he goes for another Ice Punch. Now, assuming a fighting move, we're going to swap out into Lulu, who can be able to tank it no problem. And then after hitting me with another high jump kick for effectively nothing, we can go for a Psychic, bringing it down low as Mundanez then uses the full restore. Another Psychic then does quite a bit of damage, and after he heals up again, I'm going to go for a single Calm Mind. And then after he scores a crit on us, getting us down to about half, and then down just below half, we can take it out with another Psychic. Next is going to be Caparaja. And I'm going to swap out, setting in Gansett as he goes for an Iron Head. Now we're going to go for a Calm Mind as it goes for another Iron Head, getting me down pretty low, and then I can heal up with a Recover. And after healing up again to get up to full, we're now just above half, and an Aura Sphere takes out Caparaja. Next is going to be Lunai. And I'm going to swap out, setting in Flipper, assuming a parry move, and I call it with that Moonblast, which still does quite a bit of damage to us. And then it outspeeds us on the following turn and KOs Flipper before I can get off a liquidation. So I guess I'm sending in Anchor. And after getting hit with a Lunar Fire, it's going to knock down our special defense, and I can go for a Thunder Punch, doing about 60%, as he then heals up with the Citrus Berry. And after another Lunar Fire is going to come in, getting me down to just 12 HP, another Thunder Punch KOs the Lunai, which is going to lead into Licky Licky. And I am in a bad spot, but we're going to swap out into Caramel as he goes for an Aqua Tail. And after getting hit with a Body Slam and getting the paralysis off, I'm going to go for a Leech Seed, which fortunately we don't miss. The Licky Licky then goes for an Explosion, which takes out Caramel as well. Now down 2 Pokemon, we're going to send in Gansett as he sends in his Electric-type Persian, who's going to go for a Wild Charge, and then we can go for a super effective Aura Sphere, taking out Persian, and we defeat Mundanez, and I cannot believe this guy took out 2 of my Pokemon. So in this game between rounds of the Pokemon League, you're allowed to change your party around and go back to the Pokemon Center and heal. So we're going to replace our 2 fallen friends with Petey the Ferrothorn and Lola the Lapis. After the first round of the Pokemon League at a dinner with all of our friends, Vera gives us an Abra, who I'm going to nickname Spoon. Before the second round of the Pokemon League, we have to go into the sewers to try to get the championship trophy back. And when exploring, we find an Alolan Raticate, who we're going to nickname Chunk. And after fighting to the back of the sewer, we find 2 natives worshipping Uktana who've stolen the trophy. And after defeating them both, Opalo and Dalio come to our aid. After recovering the trophy, Apollo has no idea who Uktana is, but he doesn't like the sound of those 2 insurrectionists. But we have more important things to do, like Pokemon League. After getting back to the stadium, we are greeted by Dalio, who's going to start the second phase of the Pokemon League. The 8 gym leaders appear, and this random old man who was yelling at Mandanas at the beginning of the game has officially replaced him because he quit his job. And it looks like we're gonna have to face off against a random 3 of them. And apparently our first opponent is gonna be Dalio, followed by Peonia, and finally Acacia. And I'm gonna take my chances up against Peonia in our first battle. She starts off with Sigilif, and we send in Rouge. And I'm gonna go for a couple of sword stances, so hopefully all I have to do here is just Night Slash my way through all the trouble. And after getting the +6 and getting down to about a third, we're gonna go for a Night Slash, KOing Sigilif. Next out comes Hariyama, and once again we can go for a Night Slash, and we're gonna do about 50%, as a Peace Pipe does a decent amount of damage to us, but one more takes it down, which is gonna lead into Alakazam. And see you later, alligator. Out next is going to be Claydol, going for another +6 Night Slash takes down the doll, which leads into Gardevoir. And a neutral Night Slash is going to Oko this Gardevoir as well. And with that, we've defeated Peonia. And now the Electric Master Dalio is going to be up next as he sends in a Galvantula. And we're going to do the same thing here, going for a couple of sword stances, hoping that we can get our thing done. And we're trapped in here with a spider web, but guess what, buddy? I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. And going for a Bulldoze, we can KO the Galvantula. Next out comes Lantern, and once again we can Oko this thing, no worries. And I am super duper lucky that I managed to pick up Rouge when I did. And after Altaria gets healed up by a full restore, we can get it way down into the red, which is going to prompt Dalio to use his second full restore. And after a couple more Night Slashes, we can take it down. Toxtricity is up next, and we're going to slash this thing again, putting an end to the metal. And when we go for a Bulldoze on Magnezone, it's going to go down to a quad effective +6 super effective stab Bulldoze, and we defeat Dalio. And howdy there, partners. It's time for Acacia and her ground guys. Hippowdon comes in first, whipping up a Sandstorm, and we're going to go for a couple of Swords Dances here. But unfortunately, we get slapped with a quad effective Ice Fang. And at +2, I'm going to go for an Ice Slash, and I do not even do half. And going for another one, we're going to get it down pretty low before Acacia heals up, and then so do we. And then going for another Swords Dance, the Ice Fang is going to do about 50% again before we roost up, and then we're going to get ourselves to +6. And now that we're at +6, we can go for a Night Slash, doing just about 50%, as she uses another full restore, and after 2 more Night Slashes, we take the Hippowdon down. Next out comes Mamoswine, and we're going to go for a Bulldoze, grabbing the Yoko. Next up comes Mudsdale, and we're going to go for another Bulldoze, getting it down pretty low as it sets up an Iron Defense. But that's fine with me, because one more takes it out. Gliscor's up next, and we're going to go for a Night Slash, getting this thing down pretty low as it goes for a Sword Stance of its own before we can ultimately grab the KO, which is going to lead into Tangrowth. And going for another Night Slash, we're going to do about 50% as this thing sets up a Leech Seed, which is kind of unfortunate. And going for another Night Slash, we're going to get it down wicked low, as it's going to get us down super low as well. And left with only 12 HP, we take ourselves out, and the most powerful Pokemon on our team goes down. But we defeat all 3 gym leaders, which means we can move on to the final round. To fill in our last spot, I'm going to add our only water Pokemon in, evolving Sylph quickly into a Seadra. And then we're going to evolve our Seadra one more time into a Kingdra. But before we can face off against Abano, we head over to the park, where Opalo and Vera decide to have a small wedding full of our friends. Except for, of course, our girlfriend. I don't know why I didn't get a +1 to this thing, but whatever. Yo, and then this guy says the most boss thing ever in the entire Pokemon world. Vera, I choose you. The next morning, after much celebration and heavy drinking, it's going to be time for us to face off against Professor Ibano, with over 100,000 people in attendance and broadcasts all over the world. The first Pokemon League Championship in 7 years in the Sephria region is about to begin. And now it's time for us to face off against Champion Ibano, who starts off with a Pikachu. And if this whole thing seems like a trick, it totally is. I didn't commentate this initial part because I honestly didn't think that Ibano was going to go through with it, but Dalio asked for him to purposefully use a weaker team and lose against us so we could be the champions and inspire the entire region. But given how low level all these Pokemon are, I know that this isn't his real team. And after quickly taking out all 3 of these fake Pokemon of his, we defeated Ibano. but overcome with pride. Opalo tells the audience that this fight was rigged. He purposefully used a bad team of popular and cool Pokemon and furries. And after removing his shirt, showing off his mighty biceps, triceps, abs, pectorals, and all sorts of other really cool muscles, the real fight against Professor Opalo begins. But not before it flashes to our dad, hanging out with our Growlithe, where less than a year ago we shared a bed. Then it flashes to our mother in the hospital, watching us do super awesome stuff on television. Now, back to those rippling abs. And now it's time for us to face off against Professor Opalo and check out those muscles. But you did cure my paralysis, right? Because if I'm going into this fight at a disadvantage, honestly, that's kind of crappy. Steelix comes out and I set an up paralyzed Gansett. And this dude starts off with a Mecha Steelix who's going to go for an Iron Tail, doing a lot more than I honestly expected him to. And after we go for a Calm Mind, the Steelix is going to go ahead and set up a Stealth Rock and we're paralyzed. And after taking an Earthquake, we can go for a +1 Aura Sphere, taking out the Mega Steelix. And I guess Gansett did his job here, as Haxorus comes in. So we're going to swap out, hoping for a Dragon move, sending in Lulu. And we call it as it tries to go for a Dragon Claw. It's then going to go for a super effective Poison Jab, getting me down pretty low, and I'm not even going to bother setting my Calm Mind up as we go for a Dazzling Gleam, taking out Haxorus. Crocodile's up next. Who's gonna go for a Crunch, KOing Lulu, but honestly I didn't really have a better option here. So we're gonna send in Lola, and we're gonna go for a super effective High Jump Kick, KOing the Crocodile in just one shot. Bouffalant comes in next, and we're gonna go for the same thing here, going for another High Jump Kick, taking out this Buffalo. Scrafty's up now, and we're gonna go for the same thing again, and thank goodness we're not missing as I Oko the third one of his Pokemon in a row. Then out finally, his Mandibuzz. And a stab, super effective Nevermelt Ice Boosted Ice Punch doesn't KO as he goes for a Foul Play, doing quite a bit of damage to us. After that, one final Mighty Ice Punch takes down this bird. And with his bird defeated, we've defeated Opalo to become the Pokemon League champions of the Sephria region. And as the crowd erupts in applause, two Gardevoirs come to our side as very awkward cheerleaders. And after claiming our championship trophy, a guy who lived at his dad's house in a 2-room house, sharing a bed, now the Pokemon League champion and vice president of the entire country. But just as we celebrate, everyone in the stadium disappears, and we're presented once again with this dark figure. Now we flash to a wasteland. We are fulfilling your wishes, Uktana. Makanawa will be ours. Again. Why can you see me? Do you have the same blessing of the Great Spirit? And whoever this mystery lady is, she wants to kill us. And with that, we have beaten the Pokemon League and the first part of the story of Pokemon Opalo. If you liked the video and you made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, then what the heck are you doing? Please go ahead and hit that button down below. And if you'd like to see a video about the second half of this game in a brand new region where we finally officially save the world, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. But with that, I will catch you all in the next Pokemon video. See ya.